On the first lesson, we saw how to install Laravel Nova on your Laravel web application. So we finished our lesson actually by writing /nova, and it came here to the login page. So if you see this page, you are well, you're good, and you have configured Nova well to actually start using it on your application. So let's see now some things that came behind the scenes. Okay, so on this lesson we are going just to take a look about some things that are, let's say, interesting to see how actually Nova works and what does it create on your system. So then you can, of course, later on we can see better what does those mean. So if I go to PHP Artisan route lists, I see that Laravel Nova creates a lot of new routes, as you can see here. So most of them, they are Nova API. So these are going to be, let's say, Ajax requests. So Laravel Nova uses Axios to make Ajax requests. And as you can see, there is a lot of them here. So because this is a single page application, meaning that the page itself doesn't refresh on a way that, well, in this case, it uses a lot of Ajax to try to actually work on the system, and a lot of query strings on the top also to refresh the page for the things that you want to see. So here on the Nova API, there is a lot of things here that for now we don't need to understand them. The one that we are going to call, of course, is this /nova, right? That actually loads the first page, and then of course it has an authenticate middleware that redirects you to the login page in case you're not authentication. So of course I'm not going to authenticate for now. So let's take a look here on the code. So what happens? So this Nova one is actually of course it's the folder that we just created where I have all the information there. So because we used the composer, as you remember, this type path, what composer does, it actually creates a symlink here, as you can see. So it's a symbolic link. If you go to reveal source, it comes to the physical directory that you currently have. You can actually avoid this by passing, if you want to really put it on the vendor, you can just go here to the composers.json and you can pass, if I'm not mistaken, but you can check on the documentation, symlinks, and then you pass false. When you do this, it actually copies, let's say, all the information, all the directory structure, all the files that are here to the vendor /laravel/nova for you not to have this one here. For now, we keep it as it is. Actually, it's the practice that on the instructions it says to be like that. So what else does Nova make? So let's see here on let's start by the app. So app, we see there's a folder here called Nova. And then on providers, you see there is a new Nova service provider for you to use on. So here, there is some methods here like gate. Gate is a method that will actually validate your authentication, your capacity to log in, not to actually do authentication, but actually to say, okay, if you can actually use Nova or not. Okay, so this attention, because it says here non-local environment. So whatever you change now here, I saw some posts about this. People change code here, they test and nothing works. Well, nothing works because you are on the environment local. So you need to change this to, I don't know, production or to your quality environment, whatever environment you use. And then, of course, it will start working that gate. There is also here cards that says new help by default. So the cards are the cards that are displayed on the Nova dashboard. So as you know, when we made login, it goes to dashboard, as we're going to see, and here you pass the cards that you want to read on your dashboard. So there's only one by default, that is the help, and the help is, we are going to see, it's like a matrix of what Nova has. Then there is tools. Tools goes, as we are seeing this in a much more advanced tutorial, it's about extending Nova. So basically, if you want to do something that is specific for you, you create a tool. Okay, and we are going to see that in a couple of lessons, almost at the end of this tutorial. So okay, so this provider we already saw. So this directory called Nova, and then there is here a resource and a user. So by default, what we do is we admin resources. So best way to explain the resource is you look at a model. Okay, model is, let's say, directly kind of a resource. And the resource means that you empower your model with a CRUD action on it. So it means that it transforms that into a resource. You can update the resource, you can delete data on that resource. You can add, create new data, force delete, all the operations that Eloquent lets you do on the backend on the normal framework. You can also do it here on the resource itself. So this resource is actually the abstract class, so you don't use it, you just extend it on your resources. So by default, Laravel Nova comes with a user resource that then has a couple of methods and attributes here that we're going to pass. So starting here for the first ones, we see that it says public static model. Well, this one is very simple to understand. The model the resource responds to. So in this case, by default, it goes to an app user. So because by default also we have this app user model here when we install Laravel. Then it says that goes to the users table. Then we have this title here. We are going to see what does this mean. So basically this title is when you represent that resource, for instance, on drop downs, or when you search, or when you actually need to put something about it, it will show the name, the column name. Okay, so it's a column that you put here, so it's column name, and in this case it will display the name of the resource, in this case the column name on that resource. So search means if you do global search, or a search in terms of the normal search, the search on the data grid itself, what are the columns that Laravel should use to search on? There are more methods, there are more attributes that you can have here, like the width, that is if you want to use eager loading. You can also pass the relationship that you want to use, so Laravel makes the eager load on that case. And then you have these fields here. So fields is very interesting. It's actually where we are going to spend at least this part of the next lesson, to understand this good one, because here how does Laravel Nova works on. So you create fields, you actually configure fields on your resource, and the way you configure the field goes for all the CRUD actions. Okay, so you can say, okay, I want to see this field on all my index, when I'm indexing the resource, like seeing the models, that the model collection that is inside that resource, actually the data. If I want to delete, you can have a lot of definitions here on each of these fields that comes on the Laravel Nova documentation. So if you go to the documentation here, and then of course you'll see here fields, and then defining fields, it's exactly what we just talked. Logically, Laravel has a lot of types of fields, like ID comes by default when you create a new resource. We are just going to do one in a couple of seconds. Gravatar is another type of field that you have here that actually shows an image. Text, it's an input type equals to text, and then of course you can say it's sortable. So sortable means that when it's displayed as an index, means that as a data grid you can sort that column out, ascending or descending. And then rules, these rules means that it's for all the types of operations, but of course you can also, as you can see here, define on a creation or an update exactly what are the type of rule that you would like to apply in case there is this action to be performed, right? This controller action, so creating or updating on the model. Here, password, again, it's a password. By the fact it is a password, it already has some business logic, like it doesn't show, if you are editing, it doesn't show the password. You don't need to worry about that, because those kind of things, like, but if I'm on edit, I don't want to show the password. No worries, the password field already does that for you. Okay, and here, as you can see, it says only on forms. Only on forms means it doesn't appear on the index itself, and in this case, of course, makes sense because you don't want to see a field called password when you're showing a data grid with lines there, right? So that's it. Then I have cards. Well, cards is, we're going to see this also on some lessons, is what are the type of plugins, or let's say the type of dashboard data that you want to show on this resource. So you can put on top of the resource some cards that you can also create, extending Laravel Nova. You can apply filters. So what is a filter? A filter, you're going to also see, it's basically if you want to create a new query based on the request that comes, and then of course apply a subset of data on that index result that you have. Lenses, it's if you want to really create a new query full from scratch on that resource. And actions, if you want to act on the models collection that you selected. So now that I gave a bit of theory here, let's take a look here on the screen. What does that mean? So I'm going just to make a login. By the way, if you are installing Laravel Nova and you don't have anything in terms of your users, because on my case, as you remember, we are going to do it together to transform the Laraning back office into this new Laravel Nova. So on my case, of course, if I go here and do select star from users, I already have a lot of users here that I have here, right? So what we need to do here is actually on my case, I already have one user to log in, but what happens if I want to create a new user? Well, Laravel Nova has a command. So if I do PHP artisan Nova, you'll see that it has a lot of things here already. So most of them are scaffolds that you're going to use to scaffold, let's say, a skeleton that you can use. But of course, you have the Laravel Nova user. And this one, it creates a user for you. I'm not going to create one, but if you follow, it just asks name, email, and password. And then it's a user that you can use to log in using the web gate on this case for this one. Remember that Laravel Nova by default doesn't come with a custom gate, means that any user that have access on your front end as an authentication also will have access on the back end in case you are using the web gate. Of course, there is ways to configure a custom gate, but on this case, it comes with that one by default. And last but not the least, also we have here on the config a file called Nova. So here, as you can see, first we import some namespace, some class namespaces that are needed to be used. And so app name. So here it's really the name of your app. So on my case, it says here Nova site, but you can call it, for instance, in my case, let's call it Laraning Wave. Wave, it's the code name for back office that I have. Here, where the user will be redirected when clicking the application name in Nova navigation bar. So they're related to root of your path of URL. Then here, what is the URL that you write to access Nova, and then the middlewares that are being used. Of course, you can pass here also your middlewares in case there is a Nova root that is called. You can of course just do it, or you can just stick, like you say, you can stick with this stack and that's it. Okay. So I'm going to save it because I just changed the Laravel application name to Nova application name to Laraning Wave. And what else? So here we went to the Nova, we saw these ones, we saw the provider, very good. So I think for now it's good. Let's then take a look at spin here and see what happens. So I'm going to enter. I don't have this user, but I have this one. What is a password? Oh my god, I forgot my password. No, I know. It says enable to detect application namespace. So let me see again here on the config. Maybe a mistake here somewhere. No, here it's not. Here is not. It says foundation enable to detect application namespace. This is a good one. Let's search on the internet. What does it mean? Because it's the first time I see this one. Enable to detect application namespace. It says that you need to do a composer update, and sometimes record from lines be done, comma, and so this happens for composer updates. Okay, so let's see what happens if I do a composer update. There you go. So there is something not well on my composer while I was doing this lesson. So let me see again. Yeah, it's this comma here. Yeah, exactly. So now it's working. So let's see it again. If this was the situation. Yeah, there you go. Good. So we just made a quick troubleshooting here on a problem. So here when you do a login, as you can see, by default, it redirects you to the dashboard, right? So very good. And this is the help cards that we saw on the Laravel Nova here. So if I go here back to this app Nova, providers Nova, and then scroll down to cards, you see it says new helps. Let me comment this and see what happens. See, nothing appears. So this card is actually this definition of this this code of HTML code that is here and that is shown up. Now on the left, as you can see, it says resources, users, and then the dashboard on the top. So each time you create a new resource, also known as model, let's say so, or empowered model. It will appear here on the left, users, and then the next ones. And on this case, for now, we just stick to the users to see what's going on. So if I click on the users, look at this. It actually shows here all the users that I have already. And it shows here on the left, like a small click to actually a small eye that you can click that you can see it, and then of course you have these buttons here. So all of this is creating automatically based on the information that you pass on your resource. And this sentence is very important. All this information is made automatically based on information mostly that you pass on your fields and that you pass on something that we see later on, your policies also, to allow this authenticated user to do certain operations on the Nova resource on this case. We are going to see that later on. For now, on this lesson is just for you to see this resource that we have here. So let's try to do some things like, let me take this email out. So if you go here to the text make email, and I want to say, okay, I want to keep this field, but again, I just want to see it on forms. So it's exactly as you have there on the password. So you just need to write only on forms. You don't have 5, bingo. And as you can see, there is no more emails there, and there is only names. Of course, there is a gravatar field here, as you can see. So when you put a gravatar, it shows an image without a name there. And let me do a quick test here. Like if I write gravatar, does it put actually a title on the column? No, it doesn't. Okay, so in this case, it just never puts there the title. The name, of course, of course, you can sort it, as you can see here. Some guys trying to do some SQL injection on my website, so nice. And then, as you can see, we have all the information. And here on the right, you have like view, edit, and delete. And again, all of this is dynamic created. You can also create a new user. And when you create a new user, it's also based on the fields that you have placed here. So it always, of course, gravatar, you don't do anything on that field, right? So Laravel Nova knows that even if you're using this field, when you create a new user, you don't actually write a gravatar, because it will appear in image based on your of course, on your information that you have placed on gravatar. So this part is very good, as we can see. And I want just to show to you, you can also do kind of a panels here. So let's go back to the documentation just to show you something nice. Field panels. So as you can see here, even the Taylor, when he wrote the documentation, shows user details, address information. Okay, so how do you do this? Actually, you create a new panel, and then you pass the title of the panel, and then the array that you want to have there inside. So let's just do a very quick test here and put this text and password on a specific one. So I will write new panel, and then I say extra information, or you call it whatever you want, it's just a test, right? And then you, as you can see here, it returns an array, right? So this is the part that you have 2 options. I like this option about creating a protected function here. So I'm just going to, of course, you can pass the array directly there, but it doesn't look so nice. So let me just put this like this. And I'm going to, here on the extra information, so I'm going to write not address field, but I'm going to put extra fields. Okay. And here, you just need to put these extra fields exactly as on the documentation. And I'm going just to remove these 2. And here you just do return. And then you return, as you can see, an array of the fields that you would like to have there. And that's it. So this one creates new, don't forget to, of course, put the class there. So Laravel Nova panel. And here the namespace, and here, as you can see, it writes extra information. So if I go back to my code here, and instead of being here, I'm going to view. So I'm going to click on min, and it doesn't show the panel because sorry, let me see what's going on here. So user make, Sorry, click on the wrong one. So if I go to this one, I see user details. I see new panel. So let's again go back here and see what's going on. So new panel, address information, these address fields. So new panel, these extra fields, protect text function extra fields, and then return all of these. So gravatar text. So gravatar, and then he places the name, but he's not understanding this new panel. So let me just go back here to the instructions and understand what I did wrong. So new panel, no, it looks pretty quite well. So new panel, extra information. Let me just move on this panel to another place. Maybe it's because it's at the end. That I don't believe so. So let me just go back here. No, it shows the gravatar ID, gravatar name. So basically it's just jumping my fields. Okay. And I know why. Because see here, it shows correctly now because I made a test, and it's because I was passing the only on forms. So as you can see, if I remove these now on the index display, it will show the extra information. So again, lessons learned, only on forms, of course, those fields don't appear on the index. So that's the way. And now, as you can see, it appears on the detailed view, the information divided. So very good. 20 minutes, it's my limit here on this lesson, so it's already 21 minutes. So I think we can stop here. And of course, on the next one, we are going to actually create a new resource. On my case, I have two resources I need to create, one for series, another one for videos. And we are going to start by the series ones and see how it moves on, okay? Thank you very much. See you again on the next lesson. Bye-bye.